when a parent dies, do they leave anything for their children outside of the material?
Like things?
Let's
A
say something
suitcase?
maybe
A bag, a package, a note, a letter? What do you mean leave something?
something of their nature, of their being, something that characterizes
Well,
them.
the fact that if it's a parent, of course, you are the same nature, basically. If it's a blood relative, you are the same nature, basically. There's a certain key or tone that distinguishes family from non-family. It's a psychic factor. Yeah. Some family members can hate one another, but they know there's family, so there's this quiet sort of understood power between them. And when we're speaking about the understood powers between blood relatives, then there's a lot that survives the piercing of others. But that's not the fullness of what is left, or what is given at birth. It's not the fullness of it. So what you have, you're given at birth to be activated at different times along the time track by certain experiences that are key, that are triggered into your karma. So sometimes it takes the death or birth of somebody to activate something in you because of resonance, because it's all connected. A person dies, your life might begin. A parent dies, your life might start then. It may begin at that point. Someone is born, a part of you may die at that point. And it ends at that point. Such as the balance and the justice of, well, let's say, karmic machinations, which is so complex and abstract that most people are confused by the whole thing. And so you need to live your life after the passing to find out what is left for you to unfold into as a result of the passing. Not necessarily caused by the passing, but as a result of the passing, so that stops an influence. So the influence becomes, let's say, less or non-existing on a certain level, which means then you have the breathing room then to manifest something else. Okay. So everybody who leaves makes room for something else to happen. Let us say that's a very simplistic way of viewing it. Something's gone, something comes in. Yeah. Something's missing, something needs to show up. Yeah. This is by law and by karmic process in terms of balance. I'm not saying any of it's good on either side or bad on either side. It has to be worked out by the individual. See? So spiritually you have to see yourself as more than your karma, but see karma as something you ought to work with, see? Not be determined by. Otherwise you're the effect. If you're the effect, that means you're less than. You're less than the consideration of whatever it is. Comment.
So if the departed, if one assumes, let's say, behaviors or tendencies or habits of the departed, are they really gone, in a sense?
Well, physically, obviously they're gone. You go check the tombstone in the grave, or look at what is that, where the ashes are, the vessel of the ashes, the chalice, or whatever it is. And sure, they're gone, but the influence, see, because they're not the body anyway. So the body's gone, no question about that. But you are their body, because you're the relative, the blood relative, to some degree. So they're not gone in that way. You're still alive in terms of like the tone, the psychic tone of the family energy, see. The line, you're still there, you're vibrating. You're a version of it.
Would you consider that an inheritance?
No, it's just a genetic, I guess you might say, code as such. I mean, you could say you inherited it because you're born to, so, but it's just a continuum then. It's not necessarily a thing, you know. As such, it's, you know, there is such a thing of a line sort of going extinct. Right? and it's gone. But that in turn, relative to the larger scheme of karma, can be psychically passed on to someone else, depending on the need for whatever it is that that particular line, before it was extinct, was serving, say, in some function or other relative to, say purpose or mission. And that's how it is, because we're not the flesh, and we're not only the flesh, they're spirits. So even though the family of musicians is finished, the energy, the spirit of it continues. Somebody may get it. That may pass on, but nobody sees that. See, those melodies, those impulses, those impressions, those psychic sort of like sensitivities can be translated by the spirits themselves. See, which are living, but there's in ghost form or subtle body form, see, spiritual forms, which is intelligence that's passed on, that can influence the physical and the living, no doubt about it. So you're influenced by your father, no question, by his presence, by his life, by his relationship to you, and then by his passing, that can result in activating certain things to make you even more like your father. You're in his place. You take the place of the father. In that sense, you are a different version of the father. You are the son version or the daughter version of the parent.
So is the family river of blood altered by a passing?
Of course, altered. Yes, a birth alters it, and a passing, a death alters it. One comes in with joy, and the other one goes out with sadness and sorrow and loss. Not 100%, and not necessarily, one thing or other, particularly. But yes, of course, there's an absence. So there's like a light going out. So there's a darkness, but then there's more light. So then that's supposed to be brought to a balance somehow. He's gone, now who's here? So the one who's in the here is the one dependent upon in some way or other for representing who the grandfather was, let's say, or the great-grandfather, the grandparents, and the spirit of the grandparents live in the children, grandchildren. Come in.
And so is there a relationship, let's say, between somebody dying and somebody who's then born? Does, for example, the person who's passing is staying alive so that they can be here when the next generation is born?
Say that again, is a person who's passing staying alive?
Yeah, just to make
Oh,
contact with the one who's
Right, the living, you're saying the living.
Yeah.
Yeah, the living extends their life to what purpose?
To meet the next generation or the next incoming,
Could be.
member.
It happens like that. One person dies, the next person's born. It happens. It's all about the karma, what the conditions are, and what the agreements are as past karma, and what the family needs, or what the lessons need to be. And being born at a certain time is really manifesting the certain lessons to be learned, and certain lessons already maybe too well learned. When they're too well learned and you're born into a family, you're ready to move on already. Like just as a child, you're already saying, I already know this. I'm beyond this. I've learned this before. So there's no disagreement. Then it becomes an issue of maturity and progression. Say, grandfather, oh yeah, I know I'm still a kid, but I already know these things you're talking about, pops. I'm ready to move on. Or grandma, or whatever.
Is that the experience?
And I don't mean move on into the next world, particularly the next level of intelligence, perhaps the next level of lessons and karmic, let's say, developments. That means it's ready to take leadership, assume leadership responsibility. And say, no, Grandpa, now that I'm here, we're going in a different direction now. Say, in other words, Grandpa, I'm taking your lessons, your state, your completedness, whatever, and moving it in this direction now. Now it's time for cataclysmic change. in the family line. And nobody's going to like that, let's say, or not too many, but some will see that that's exactly what's necessary. Otherwise, a person wouldn't be given the birth, they wouldn't have been given this birth and the power to go in another direction.
Is there an element of, let's say, young souls and old souls in this? Does it take an old soul to come in the family and move beyond in the way you're talking about?
Could be old soul, young soul. Old soul, more experience, more tolerance, more peace. Young soul, restless, confused, crazy, loud, insane, sick. Young soul, needing to be tamed, needing to be taught, cured, needing to be matured, educated, see, lifted up, healed. Young souls, troubled souls, young souls. Yeah. Old souls, cool, understanding, sympathetic, old souls, calm, clear, and collected in a way, older than their years. Also, having learned more lessons than other people, and much more in the solutionary side of things than the problem side.
Can they bring them with them at birth, so that let's say even a baby is a healer within a family? Or
Yeah, again, some of that has to do with the timing, because there's a grace in time, which a lot of people have no idea of. They don't think in those terms, the grace of time, auspicious aspects. See? Yeah, could be that. And then there's the development of intelligence, which really shows where the person is and what they've come to heal, what they've come to fix, what they've come to change, what they've come to put to rest. And as a child, seeing my family in the midst of drinking as a way of life and pleasure, I had made a determination not to be like that. See? So we don't know when and how that comes, but that can come to a person, regardless of their age. Could be young, could be much later, doesn't matter. So you see what it is, so you know what it isn't for you. And then we are the step up, see, the improvement over what was. If we're talking about healing, what would otherwise and most conventionally be considered a sickness of the mind or the body. See? So we know better. See? That doesn't mean we are better or superior. It means that there's a change that's come and it's needed to be manifested as such for not the self, but for others who need to see that someone has chosen to change the tone, change the path, see, change the direction a little bit. More in favor of healing solution. Now that's complex. Healing solution can be at the mental level, or the emotional level, or the physical level. So it's wide open. What level will it be?
So what explains the different levels of, let's say, connection and resonance between various family members? Some get intensely close, some are like strangers.
It's as it needs to be. You have to get close so that you can have distance. You have distance so that you can get close. And everything for a moment, because your life is a moment. It's not permanent. Your state of wisdom could be permanent. You can carry that forward. It's a state of realization, but your time means that it's not yours. If you have time, that means you're on borrowed time. If you sense you have time, that means it's already being, reduced. You're losing time as you see time. See? So you need time to recognize time so you can lose time and maybe gain something in the process. So if we can gain wisdom while we are losing time, then we are making progress.
So are there past life connections between people in the same family? And if so, are we in effect our own ancestors?
Can be. But you want to see outside of the box. So you want to see more than just a family. You want to evolve beyond the whole conversation of the family. It's the world. So you want to get from the world to the universe. See the bigger picture. But you got to start with the family. So you see that as a step, a baby step along the path of life. See, that's let's say a path of knowing and a path of being free, happy, see, and fulfilled in a spiritual sense.